All right, we have now got a quorum, and it's the scheduled time. Mr. Gary Fan, in accordance with para 37 or 39 of the Finance Committee rule, in accordance with para 39 of the Finance Committee procedure, Mr. Gary Fan is moving a motion, and you can speak under that rule, and you are not supposed to exceed the time given to any member, and given the time limit, no more than 3 minutes will be given to members to speak. So will those who would like to speak please press the button to request to speak? Mr. Gary Fan. Chairman, in accordance with para 39 of the Finance Committee procedure, I'd like to move that the committee be now adjourned, because the issue is very controversial, and also at the last meeting, many members asked the administration to answer questions, but then the administration failed to give specific replies, and also even for reduction at source and also recycling and so on, the administration has not been able to convince some members that we should continue to scrutinize the item. Bureau Director, all right, it's been 9 years. All right, you suggested that during your term, you're going to implement this 10-year waste reduction blueprint. Ms. Sito, I have a question. We do not have a quorum. We haven't got a quorum now. We have 8 persons. We only have 7 here. We only have 7. So we cannot just pretend that we do not see it, because you have to include me. We have 8 here. So please do not place too many items before you, so that we'll be able to have a clear sideline. We have to count the chairman too. I am worried. We don't have 8. We have 1 plus 8. So we'll make a quorum call then.
我哋係咪要打 quorum 鐘咧？
我哋喺出邊。
范國威議員
Mr. Gary Fan, may I start now? May I start again? Yes, please. Bureau Director, during your term of office, you proposed this blueprint from 2013 to 2022. It's about waste reduction. You've been saying that you have this plan and blueprint, but then I have to criticize the administration that for a very long time you only had the blueprint without specific action plan. And in other words, if we do not have a sustainable policy and ability to put our words into action in reducing municipal solid waste, then your predecessor, Ms. Sarah Liao, in October 2005, she submitted a report on MSW, and she already set out all the policy tools, and it's been 9 years, and now you're trying to implement them, and all you're trying to do is to just postpone the date she pledged back then on waste reduction and so on. All right, these are just slogans, but then for residents who have been putting up with the incessant expansion of landfills, it's been many years already, and therefore, to me, for the 3 landfills and incinerator proposal, I think you should adjourn the debate instead of dealing with that right away. So, with regard to sand and also the ultimate closure date, you have not been able to answer the question when we asked if we believe that MSW's disposal is a territory-wide campaign, and if the administration has been able to subsidize the recycling industry, that's one thing. And also, with regard to producer responsibility system, you should also play a role. We've been to South Korea, and they've been able to recycle and reuse even a toothpick. And they've also got relevant policy to tie in with that. And with regard to participation by the business sector, obviously is inadequate. And the government's policy has been very biased or slanted towards the business sector. You have not done enough in terms of waste reduction. With regard to construction waste reduction, your time is up, Ms. Emily Lau. Thank you, Chairman. I support the motion to adjourn the debate, because this paper, obviously, shows that the Bureau Director might have done a lot of things, but then they have not been effective. You said that you've had 340 contacts, and as members have said, all right, Tuen Mun residents would like to meet you, and Cheung Kwan O residents would also like to meet you, and yet you have not been able to tell us exactly whom you have met with. So you might just be meeting people that you like. And for district councils, all right, some of them said that there's no need to put the matter to the vote. They just need to express their support for you. I think you need to be able to meet with the opposition voices, and you have to listen to their views, and you have to be able to foster a consensus before you can really implement your policy. I've spent a lot of time asking Dr. Ellen Chan, because she gave me this letter dated November the 2nd, and residents have been asking this, and the chairman was also infuriated. So they asked for an ultimate closure date for the Cheung Kwan O landfill, and you were ambivalent about this. So many people are watching, Bureau Director. You have not answered the question. And also, when they ask you about the dump trucks, and if they have derrick falling down everywhere, and you also said that you needed to legislate, because the EPD plans to amend the legislation, and the commencement date would be the 1st of April next year, and then you'll be doing the Gazetto on the 1st of December this year. But then you also talk about joint operation to target the illegal acts. But then if you have not amended the legislation, then how can you tackle those problems? And even if you're able to do that, you said that from the 1st of January to the end of September, you carried out 29 joint operations. I don't know what you've been able to do, because you haven't changed the law yet. So you're just talking about 3 operations per month, and if we have been to One Pole Road together, all right, it's an irony that you've called it One Pole Road, all right. I don't really want to make the life of the industry so difficult, but then you also have to come up with proper rules and regulations so that they would not be violating the law, they would not be overloading, they would not be causing a lot of dust problem. So we've been asking you to do it by sea, and you said that you'd be able to reduce the number of trips by 100, but then you're talking about some 1,300 trips per day. So it's a drop in the bucket. So how can you convince us that we should support you? Bureau Director, you have to do something to convince the residents that you are doing something to deal with the problem that they are facing day in, day out, so that you can provide them with some incentives and betterment. You have not been able to do either. I was not airing my anger, but then I was trying to help you so that we can do a better job. That's why I can see that many members were going after them on this. That's why I was trying to help. So I did not get furious about this. Yes, Mr. Albert Ho, I think the Bureau Director has been to the Tuen Mun District Council more than once, and I'm sure you would also find that there was a lot of opposition within the council. But then if you talk to the district councillors there, it's not that there is no room for discussion. In fact, you have had 2 successes. One is about the Zhangzhou columbarium proposal. Initially, you were also very concerned, because we're talking about 10,000 niches, and in the end, we all tried our best to fight for that. And now, even before the commencement of works, you're increasing the number from 11,000 to 16,000. Probably we have been too easy in providing support to you, and we have not been able to sort out the traffic arrangements. But then it's very near the special industrial area, and earlier on we had the sludge incinerator. All right, this is the unique incinerator in the territory, and then for sludge, which has the sludge water screened out, that would be treated there. So there is room for discussion. And I understand that you have a joint working group, and it's a high-level working group. It's not just from your bureau. Other bureau has also been coming to talk to us. So precisely, we would need time.
Yeah. Because we are very worried about traffic. When you say that 80% of them will be by sea, we are worried with so many things, the columbarium and also reclamation. you have a reclamation plan at Longkutan under public consultation. I hope it will not be another Zhongguan-O with a big landfill there. And then if the reclamation is for housing development, well, it will be a big problem. So we are baffled. For the columbarium alone, we're asking whether there should be a tunnel or a new roads built. You should not rely on existing roads. You cannot expect everyone to get there by bus. Now, you are going to ban private cars to the columbarium at certain times of the year. So you have to look at the cumulative impacts of so many new planned projects. So you cannot just give me a simple paper and tell us that this landfill can resolve the problem, because the landfill will be increased by 2 times. Now, the district council said that if it is from 100 to 150 hectares, that is okay. We're willing to do our part, but you're going to double the size. Ms. Ho, I support Mr. Gary Fan's motion on the following grounds. First, we asked about how recycling rates will be calculated. Will the Customs and Excise Department have categories, more specific categories for exporters to make declaration? Well, the question has not been clearly answered. If we do not have more specific items for the Customs and Excise, then it will be hard for the department to ascertain the exact amount of waste plastic as well as new plastic products exported. So we need an interdepartmental cooperation. I hope that the Secretary can give us a timetable soon. I know this is not just for your department or your bureau. You have to get Mr. Greg So's bureau to cooperate. I hope that you will I hope the administration will not just ask the Environment Bureau to tackle the challenging projects without helping it at all. And how come we cannot have ultimate closure date of Zhongguan-O landfill? Because it is so unfair to the residents. Assuming that residents are willing to share this 43 tons of waste, well, you should exhaust the space for 43 tons as soon as possible so the landfill can be closed forever, so residents can know what to expect. In 2009, there was an extension of 5 hectares in Zhongguan-O landfill. Back then, the objection was not so strong. We only asked the administration to take remedial measures. However, throughout the summer, July, August, and September, Dr. Chen would know that you couldn't even find parking spaces for 6 refuse vehicles, and yet you wanted to use constitutional approach to say that we have no right to veto that project. Even Ms. Miriam Lau from the Liberal Party was so angry, and as a result, the administration withdrew the proposal so as not to create such a big controversy. Our experience is the administration was not sincere in taking remedial measures such as closing or covering the refuse collection vehicles. They were only done when the administration came back with these proposals. So there is no way we can force the government to take remedial actions unless by not giving them money. Mr. Lee Chuk-yan, I speak to support Mr. Gary Fan's motion. Why should we adjourn the meeting at once? Because we need to address the issues associated with the 3 landfills and the incinerator. We also have to sort out the relationship between the executive and this council. Of course, you may say that it's all because of this non-cooperation campaign on the part of Pan Democrats. In fact, we are cooperating with the community because the administration is being cooperative with the community. And so I don't know whether you get my logic. Because the government is not cooperating with the community, we won't communicate with the government, cooperate with the government so as to promote the welfare of the community. I don't know whether the administration is going to respond to the community's aspirations in a more positive manner or not. Things are in a stalemate. For items which Pan-Democrats or the public regard to be livelihood issues that should be given priorities, the administration refuses to budge. They want to be the enemy of the people. And we can see this dictatorship and hegemony on the part of the administration. Mr. Lin Leung is the victim. As the chairman of the PWSC, he wanted to exercise his power as the chairman. And chairman, I hope you would exercise your power as the chairman of the FC in rearranging the agenda of the FC. So Mr. Lin Leung wanted to reorganize or to reprioritize, and yet 13 items were withdrawn by the administration. I don't know how we can go on like this. Mr. Jesper Zhang, the president, asked us not to go to extremes. I'd like to ask him who is going to extreme, since the government would not want to talk with Pan-Democrats and insist on being the enemy of the people, then we must adjourn. Let's see whether we can sit down and talk, not to talk about the incinerators or the landfills and incinerator, but how are we going to move forward. Let's ask the administration, is that enough? If the administration said no, it's not enough, then we can do nothing. Dr. Fernando Zhang, it's rather meaningless for us to continue to struggle on like this. Of course, I speak to support Mr. Gary Fan's motion of adjournment. We can all see how contentious the landfills and incinerator are. Zhangguano's landfill is so close to residential developments, and for so many years the government has been fooling the people. The odor can be there for everyone to feel, and the administration claims that it's not odorous. Of course, the developer claimed that it was a very pleasant and refreshing place. All right, even if the administration has confirmed that there was odor, it said that the source was unknown. All right, you say that the landfill will not be for MSW, but for construction waste. But that can also be hazardous to health. There can be PM 2.5, suspended particulates, and there will be unhealthy impacts on the residents. So this is a planning issue. You have to tackle it from a planning point of view. By bundling up with the other two landfills and the incinerator is being unwise. As for Pingche or the landfill at Pingche or Takuling, it is relatively further away from residential developments, but there are problems with its management. I went there some time ago and I saw leachate. Whenever there were media reports, the administration would go to clean up. I was so shocked. I never imagined that the EPD would use such tactics to hide the problems. And then you told us that elsewhere there was really seeping out of leachate. So there is really something wrong with the management of the landfill. Now you talked about legal action and improvement on the part of the contractor, but how can you ensure that there will be no further leakage of leachate from the landfill? For the landfill in NT West, I'm not so familiar with it, but the 3 landfills are so contentious, and each term of secretary will give us a different saturation date for these landfills. So we query whether you're using these tactics to force us to give you the green light. Mr. James Toe. Now, I'd like to comment on the drug treatment center on Shek Wu Chau, because they have people living there 24 hours throughout the year, and there are also staff there. The environmental and hygiene impact assessments should give us more accurate and safe data to help us make a judgment. Because on the 13th of November, that is yesterday, it was only yesterday that a 1-page paper was given to us. Today is the 14th. It was by email. No wonder I couldn't find it. My apologies. The paper did not give us details on the health impact assessment. What's strange is in the last paragraph that it was reported to the EA panel on the 21st of February 2011. And I found that the report to the EA panel was even shorter than this 1-page supplementary paper we got. And there was mention of risk of cancer. Do you understand that you are following EU standard in emissions, and yet you have adopted the US standard for health impact assessment? This is strange. Unless you are saying that the EU emission standard is the most stringent and the US health assessment standard is also the most stringent. Otherwise, why have you adopted different standards for different aspects? We're worried that you have not chosen the most stringent health standard. You have to tell us the reason for choosing that standard and why it suits Hong Kong. But it is not about an acute risk of causing cancer. Compared with, now if we compare this with adopted or already quoted standards. Now, what is this sentence about? You don't even give us any quantified parameters. Ms. Ellen Leung, I speak to support this motion to adjourn because many of our questions have not been answered, including those of the chairman. Just a few years back, not too long ago, when we considered the funding application for the XRL, it was just to say many questions that should have been answered were not answered. For instance, whether the terminal should be at Kam Shang Road, whether there would be any project overrun, budget overrun, whether there was the question of inflation and collocation of immigration and custom facilities. Even now, even Frederick Ma said that if this last issue could not be settled, it would just be a little bit faster than riding through train. However, with the support of the pro-establishment camp, the XRL project got the funding sought. Of course, we don't want a repetition of that case in the funding applications for the landfills and incinerator. And that's part of the reason why I support the motion to move. And Mr. Lee Cheng-yen said that I was a victim because I wrote a 16-page judgment ruling. When I was about to make known my ruling, the government withdrew the 13 items I was about to move up on the agenda list from the PWSC agenda. This is despicable. And if you want to support this motion to move, I really care for the civil servants. I hope that all motions, or all papers, with the exception of the paper for civil service pay rise, can be subject to amendments so that we can pass the civil service pay proposal at once. Now, I have given you a letter. I have got a ruling. Please see whether some of the reasons I quoted would be useful for you so as to seek redress for civil servants so that CYL will no longer be in the way of civil service pay rise. All right, I support the motion to adjourn the motion or to the paper. I think this amendment is to adjourn the meeting. I don't know whether you have received a joint declaration from the Alliance for Management of Waste. I'm a member of the Alliance with members from professionals, the academia, and green groups, or rather, friends in the recycling industry. I think there are a few points worth mentioning from this statement from the Alliance. They support a sustainable waste management scheme. First, reduce the creation of waste. Second, to improve recycling. 3, lower the bulk of waste. And third, to deal with residual waste. So reduction of waste at source, recycling, well, this have the support of the industry. But that doesn't mean that we don't need any waste treatment facilities. The third point from the Alliance is to lower the volume of waste. And the IWMF is a kind of such facilities. And of course, there are other details in the joint statement by the Alliance, but it really reflects the views of many of us in the engineering and sector and green and from the recycling industry. The management of waste is a pressing matter. If members still have problems on the 3 landfills and 1 incinerator, we can continue to discuss. It is baffling that we should have a motion to adjourn the discussion because there are so many outstanding issues. We should continue to sort them out here. It is a joke if we support the adjournment motion. Whether we support or oppose the funding applications, we should make use of this meeting to discuss them. It is totally illogical for us to support any such motion. We have spent quite a while on the landfills and the incinerator. There are many mitigating measures which the government should do or have been doing. Take Tumon as an example. The landfill should be extended in phases. Mr. KK Fung, I've got 3 reasons. First, the secretary and the director did not give me accurate data in answering my questions about the day when the landfills would be full by reducing or by banning MSW from Zhongguan O, which will be 1/3 of the waste to be landfill there. The landfill can last for another 3 years. That's according to the administration. And we know the Zhongguan landfill is only 800 meters away from the residential developments and only one street away from the headquarters of Next Media and the TV City. So the landfill will be very close to residential developments. So shouldn't you conduct another EIA to assess the latest situation? How come an EIA done 10 years ago is still applicable nowadays?
Now, there are a lot of other issues to be discussed. For example, the civil service pay rise, etc. I think we should prioritize those issues first. So it's just like a student doing an examination. He would answer the questions he knows how to answer first. Mr. Leung Yiu-chung. Thank you, Chairman. For this adjournment motion, it again reflects that the relationship between the executive and the legislature is very poor. This is a bad thing. I think the one who should solve this problem is our CE, because he should manage all the affairs in Hong Kong, and he should solve Hong Kong's problems one by one. As for today's adjournment motion, it reflects the poor relationship between Hong Kong's executive and legislature. This is a problem that has to be resolved. But in the past few weeks, our CE has not tried to solve this problem. He only made the problem worse. Just now, Mr. Alan Leung also said this. Mr. Sin Chung Kai has proposed that more important items be prioritized, but now the government has taken away these items from the PWSC agenda. This is not a good way to handle problems, but that's exactly what the government is doing. If this goes on, I don't think it's good. So I again call on the government and the CE to think twice. They should try to solve the problem. They shouldn't stand so firm. Otherwise, problems will only deteriorate. So I call on the CE to solve the problems. Mr. Zhang Yuxing also said this. When there are problems like this, there should be more communications between the government and councillors. However, in the past period, I haven't seen the government or the CE doing anything. They have never taken the initiative to talk to us. I really regret it. I remember last time, Mr. Tam Yiu-chung tried to convince us to face this problem actively. Well, this is something that we both should do. I would also like to urge Mr. Tam Yiu-chung to do this. Why don't you try to talk to the SAR government, in particular the CE that you respect? He should not be so dictatorial. Otherwise, our relationship problem cannot be solved. We should sit down and talk. Now, if you have such a conscience, I think you should really talk to him. Does any other one want to speak? Mr. Chen Ji-chun. I speak in support of Mr. Gary Fan's adjournment motion. In the past few weeks, we have used different methods. We have made a lot of effort. We hope that controversial items can be put aside so that non-controversial and urgent items can be discussed first. So that's why a number of motions were moved. we hope that this time around the government can face the reality and rearrange the agenda items so that the non-controversial items can be discussed first. However, some members still said that they don't understand when they said just now. I think the government is making things worse. You can see that at PWSC now they are making things worse. Well, actually, most of us have a consensus that is livelihood issues should be prioritized. However, the government suddenly takes away those items. And I would like to praise Mr. Tommy Cheung. We have asked you to do this, but you've never done it. Because if you have rearranged the items, then the government may take all those items away and just put the 3 landfills and 1 incinerator in the agenda. And Chairman, I have another question. Now, can you ask the government to do this? In particular, can you talk to the Financial Services and the Treasury Department? And can Mr. Cheung not lie to us? He said that for the old age living allowance, if that can be passed in December, then the elderly would receive a new rate in December. Can you talk to your government officials when you write your plan next time? Well, don't think that when you submit the proposal at a certain meeting, we will immediately approve it, and then it can take effect in the next month. That is not true. You are lying to the elders. So, Chairman, I think you should talk to the government. If you are going to make such arrangement in the future, you should be more careful. Now, unless we successfully adjourn the meeting today and you go home and rearrange your items and let us discuss the livelihood issues first, otherwise you will be the people's enemy. Now people are deprived of special schools and childcare centers. Chairman, every meeting they put forward an adjournment motion, and they are filibustering. They are not making any decision. They are dragging their feet, and now there's a huge impact on the items to be discussed. The construction costs, project costs will go up. So that's why the DAB objects to this motion. And also the Pan Democrats say that they are now having a non-cooperation movement. I try to convince them not to do that. And they are talking about hegemony, and I think they are hegemonic. Any other members would like to speak? If no one wants to speak, Mr. Ip Kwok Him. Thank you, Chairman. I've been listening for a long time, and for this adjournment debate is part of the non-cooperation movement. I think I really have to speak my mind. In particular, Chairman, they say that you should handle the order of the items to be discussed. But I think, Chairman, you should respect our past practice at the FC. This is very important. Now, some people are trying to break this rule, but you have to pay for this. And there will be more problems with the relationship between the executive and the legislature. Mr. Chen Chi-chin said things so loudly as if he has a lot of reasons. He says that the non-controversial items should be voted on first. Well, we have been talking about this for a long, long time. We shouldn't evade problems. We should solve problems. And now you constantly drag your feet. You refuse to face the problem squarely. Yes, we understand the issues we are discussing are very controversial. So that's why councillors have to make the decisions. The government has to consider all people's views and interests. The waste management problem in Hong Kong has to be resolved. We cannot turn a blind eye to it. This started in 2012 and now it's 2014. How long has this to be dragged on? And now you are putting forward such distorted reasons. You say that such controversies should be put aside. The non-controversial items should be approved first. You are cheating Hong Kong people. I'm sure Hong Kong people will not be cheated by you. We have to face problems squarely. Each one of us has to make his decision. So the DAB objects to this adjournment debate. Every time you raise it, we will object it. Please don't do it again. Don't waste time. And don't do this non-cooperation movement. It's a waste of time. Dr. Priscilla Leung, just now Lee Cheuk-yin talked about his non-cooperation movement. He says that negative plus negative will be positive. And a lot of citizens have asked me to come to tell you their views. Negative plus negative means negative. And now the council is not functioning. Yes, Hong Kong people's sentiments are different. In some districts, there are unpopular facilities. When we decide whether certain facilities should be put in a district, we have to look at the district's situation. My district also has a lot of unpopular facilities due to historical reasons. So I hope that when we look at this problem, we have to know this, because a lot of people think that negative plus negative is negative, and they think the electrical is wasting time. This would not be conducive to our council. Please do not waste our time anymore. Does anyone else want to speak? Administration, do you want to say anything? Mr. Gary Fan, you have 1 minute now. Well, Chairman, just now I listened very carefully to members' different views. In particular, Mr. Lo Wai Kwok, well, he wasn't here the whole day, but when he is needed to raise objection, he is here. So this shows what the pro-establishment camp does. They are just hand-raising machines. So if they have to vote for the government's proposal of popular facilities, they are here, they will vote. This is not what the pan-democrats will do. Just now, Mr. Tam Yew Chung rapped, and he criticized us. He said that the pan-democrats, well, Mr. Tam says the same thing at every meeting. Now I'll put the motion to vote. Division is claimed. Now the bell will ring for 5 minutes.
現在開始表決。
Voting starts now. Before I declare the voting result, please check your votes. Voting stops and the result will be displayed. For the 16 yes, 32 no, I declare that the motion is negatived. Ms. Emily, now 2 minutes. Thank you, Chairman. Last time I talked to the Secretary about the 3 green groups, Friends of the Earth, Conservancy Association, and Greener Action. And the letter was dated 16th of November. The Secretary said that the people are now not demanding it. Of course, that's not true. The groups hope that by 2016 they can implement a number of measures.
So by 2018, you're supposed to start the producer responsibility scheme. So is it that these are all unrealistic, that they would not help? So you will have to be more specific, because these groups are supposed to be working with you in sorting out the problem. So are you saying that they are not helping you? Bureau Director. Well, Ms. Lau, we've been talking to these groups and they had several demands, and actually we are quite close on several issues. For example, we have this 10-year blueprint, all right, on waste charging. We have already made it clear. That is, we are still waiting for the Sustainable Development Council's report. While we are waiting for that, we are already submitting papers to the relevant panel of this council for initiatives that can be implemented right away. So that's the core issue. That is about waste charging. And also on producer responsibility scheme, we are now dealing with 3 so-called PRS, producer responsibility schemes. So these are major schemes. So we are putting a lot of effort in doing this. But then it says that the progress has been far from satisfactory. So it leaves a lot to be desired. Well, we have to be objective in looking at this. We cannot just be subjective. All right, we have a blueprint and we will have to act in accordance with a plan. And if you can take a look at the plan, actually we have been following the schedule in pressing ahead with our policies. Mr. Albert Ho, thank you. I'd like the Bureau Director to explain again. Yes, you said that you would be conducting studies, but then if you were to implement studies, then there might be a chance that you would be doing this. That is for the Tuen Mun landfill. You will have to expand it by another 200 hectares, but then you've already said that at the District Council meeting. Maybe you can say this again. All right, for the land route, you'll be reducing that, and you would be doing that mainly by sea. And apparently you said that some 80% of the waste would be transported by sea. I do not understand this, because number one, the waste will have to be compacted. So how are you going to do it? And then after the compaction, you will have to transport it to a barging point before you can transport it by sea. So I cannot come up with a feasible way of doing this in a cost-effective manner. You will have to compact it, and then you will have to transport it by sea. And where are the transfer points? Because much of the waste will have to go to Tuen Mun, because this is going to be the largest reception center. So most of these would be located in NT Northwest and NT Northeast. So you will have to go to the eastern part of the new territories before you can go to those landfills. So how are you going to resolve the problems? Dr. Alan Chan. Yes, for the sea route, we will make use of the urban RTS, Hong Kong Island East and Island West, and also Kowloon, and also the North Lantau refuse transfer station. And you're right, for example, in Lam Tay is a land route, and also for the STTS, in terms of waste sorting, we hope that the trade and the administration will be using more such RTS, and with this mode we'll be able to increase the amount of waste that can go to Nim Wan by sea. KK Fong, fifth round, 2 minutes. Thank you, Chairman. Just now, we said that the figures from the administration are not accurate, but then I'd like to put it to them so they would be able to expose their flaws. All right, the landfills will be taking construction waste that's in Cheung Kwan O, and after the expansion, it will take another 6 years before it's saturated. So if these work out fine, so theoretically you will complete the expansion in 2017, and then for the saturation date it will be 2023. So have I done the additions correct? If that's the case, then how come it's been so difficult? Because many members have been asking you about the closure date for Cheung Kwan O. So it's just a simple arithmetic. All right, after the expansion, how many more years can it be used? Dr. Chen. Chairman, thank you, Mr. KK Fong. Mr. Chen already said that in para 9 of the paper, we have already said that it will be used for another 6 years, and then afterward you will have to close it. But then you were not willing to answer members' questions by telling them that it will be used for another 6 years. As Mr. Chen has explained, for construction waste, if we are able to do a good job in terms of waste reduction for construction waste, and if we have more buildings, well, it will fluctuate depending on the circumstances. So I think you're double talking, because we are trying our best to reduce waste, but then we do have urban renewal programs. We also have new programs coming up. That's why in terms of construction waste growth is a fact. So how come you're also talking about 6 years? So there would be a margin of error. So would it be plus or minus 2 years or what? So we have already factored in the possible growth, and you said that there would be some flexibility. So will it be increased or extended by another 1 or 2 years or what? Mr. Wu Chi-wai? In fact, during the past few meetings, many members have asked many questions, but then apparently, from what I gather from the administration, you only came up with a one-page reply about the incinerator and also some health data. I'd like to know if the Secretary has recorded all the questions that have been asked by members for information in order to facilitate the administration's response to those. I don't know if the administration has the duty to make sure that in the course of the scrutiny, if we put questions to you for additional information, would you have the responsibility of furnishing those details to us afterwards? Who is to answer this question? Mr. Au? All right, we've already given written replies to members. Last time, you also talked about the health impact assessment, whether or not the DFH has verified the information. Our answer is yes. And also on the health impact assessment, there are 2 standards. Number 1 is about the emission from chimneys, and we have adopted Euro standards. That's one of the most stringent standards, and also the impact on the recipients. And we have also made reference to the environmental authorities of the U.S. In coming up with those standards. And basically, all the information has been uploaded onto the web page. You can take a look at this. All right, different questions have been put to you by different members, and in some cases you said that you would have to go back to find out. So I'd like to know if the Secretary would be jotting down all the questions and also the pledges by the administration that they would come back on those issues to us again. Yes, we have already reminded the administration, and the Bureau is aware of the fact that they would have to furnish further details, and they will have to write to us after the meetings as to whether or not they would be able to meet your demands, because Mr. James Stowe said that the reply only came in late yesterday, so he wasn't able to take a look. So they would have to collate the information. I'm not in a position to answer the questions on their behalf as to how long it would take for them to collect the information. Sometimes it's faster, sometimes it's slower. Next, Leung Kok Hong, 6th round, 2 minutes. Thank you, Chairman. According to your logic, all right, if you do too much landfilling is not going to work. That's why you will have to go for incineration. And you said that you would go for the European and US standards. But then we are not one of one of the European countries, and our air quality has been so bad, it's notorious, it's infamous. We have already ranked number 8 in the world, and also for PM10, it has already exceeded the WHO standard by 10 times, and then PM2.5 is in excess of more than 10 times of the WHO standards, and you're still continuing to go for incineration. So later on, you might come back to tell us that incineration is not working, and therefore you will have to go back to landfilling. So what kind of strategy do you have? What if something untoward happens after incineration? So are you going to resort to landfilling again? Bureau Director, we have to emphasize that we have a comprehensive plan with waste reduction at source, and also what needs to be landfill will have to go to the landfills, and we will have to reduce our reliance on landfills and so on. So this is a practical approach adopted worldwide, and for incineration or incinerator, the impact would be insignificant. All right, you said that the impact of the incinerator would be insignificant, but then I'd just like to say this to you. If you are able to prove it, if you can prove it, then it should be done randomly. So I suggest that you should do it in the richest district in the territory. Is it possible to do it at the Tamar Garden? In particular, some of that will be transported by sea. Mr. Leung, we are talking about having a particular facility at a particular location. If you suggest that it be done at 200 different locations, is not directly related to what is being discussed. Mr. Albert Ho, 2 minutes. I'd like to follow up on the reply given by the Bureau Director about the sea transfer. You just said that one of the RTS would be located in Lam Tay, so I'd like to know the scale of operation there. So how many RTS are there? If some of them are located in NT Northwest, Lam Tay being one of them, it might not be feasible because, well, you may have to have a transfer station along the waterfront, and I don't know where the pier is going to be. And then you will have to transfer it from the pier to the landfill. So it's quite likely that for the Lam Tay site, you can only transfer waste there by land. So you may not be able to achieve the target rate of 80%. Yes, Dr. Alan Chen, thank you for the question. Well, for the Lam Tay transfer station, we're just talking about 1,100 tons a day, and when compared to West Kowloon and other RTS, it's not a big one because West Kowloon will process some 2,500 tons. So we try to identify appropriate locations for the RTS, and we try to identify locations with the sea transfer facility, but then Lam Tay unfortunately does not have that. So in future, if we were to identify more RTS, we will try to make sure that there would be a sea barging point in Lam Tay. Most of the refuse would be transferred from Lam Tay to Nim Wan by land, and that's to respond to the lifestyle waste from Tuen Mun and elsewhere. So you will have to compact the waste at Lam Tay, and you will be using the land route, and still you think that will not exceed the target, right? Because the capacity is limited. So we won't say that because the design is 1,100, we will not be forcing it to take in 1,500. So it would still be dealing with 1,100. KK Fong. All right, according to the EIA, all right, that was done in 2003 and 2005, and then in 2013, the WHO said that for PM suspended particulates, if it exceeds 10 mg per cubic meter, then the risk would go up by 4%, and then for lung disease death, it will go up by 6%, and then for lung cancer, the risk would go up by 8%. So PM would pose a lot of risk to human health. And I've already asked that previously on suspended particulates. Well, most of that would come from construction waste. And a colleague from the department said that, all right, you would try to crystallize it by cement before it goes to the landfill. So is that an internationally recognized way of dealing with suspended particulates, and also by crystallizing it, you would actually be turning something that is not solid waste into solid waste. And to what extent are we going to have an increased volume of waste? Because you will have to mix it with concrete, and then there will be more solid waste. Mr. Au, on cement crystallization, it will not give rise to suspended particulates, because we are actually solidifying the waste, and it depends on the circumstances and also the characteristics. It might be 1:1, or it might be 40%, 60%. So it varies. And also on the suspended particulates, we have adopted this special approach of an envelope type collection method. So more than 99% of the suspended particulates would be collected by such an approach, and the impact of PM 2.5 would be very low, less than 0.05% in terms of its increase. So we believe that that would not give rise to any problems. Fernando Cheung, 6th round, 2 minutes. Chairman, for recovery and waste reduction, I think one of the highlights is that, as the Bureau Director wrote in his article published in many newspapers, for the roadside recovery boxes is not playing an important role, because it would just take up a very small percentage of the total amount of waste recovered and recycled. That's why it's not significant. But then, according to many groups, if we had been able to do something somewhat better in terms of the colored boxes, then we'll be able to reduce waste generation. Because if you look at the waste in the ordinary litter bin, we are talking about some 21,000 orange litter bins, which are placed on roadside for the public. So have you done any estimates for the 20,000 plus litter bins at roadside? How many of them would be carrying paper, metals, and plastics which are recyclable? So have you conducted any such surveys? Dr. Ellen Chen. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Dr. Cheung, for your question. Well, we haven't conducted any analysis with regard to the waste collected at the orange litter bins, but then at the landfills and also the LTS, we do conduct a survey on the types of refuse being collected, and some LegCo members have also accompanied us in our survey. Yes, we have not done that for orange litter bins, but then when it goes to the landfills and also the LTS, we did conduct this survey. But according to some NGOs, what they tried to do was they tried to take a look at the waste collected at the ordinary litter bins, and they said that some 70% to 80% of the refuse would be what I said with regard to those three types. That's why they should be recovered and recycled. Mr. Raymond Chen, we've been asking the Bureau Director about how he can do a better job in terms of reduction at source and recovery and recycling and so on. You asked us for funding for the construction of the incinerator and also expansion of the landfills. All right, you've been telling us that you had the blueprint, but then it's just your wish list. But then would everything be happening in accordance with your wish? And we asked about the furnished bottom ash. You said that people would be buying that for construction, and then you said that instead of using concrete, you would be having more glass curtain walls. But then these are just items on his wish list, but then would everything be happening in accordance with his wish? So you're asking us for money for the landfill, but then you would be relaxing your efforts, because the landfills will be there to take care of the urgent problems, and then you will continue to think about your blueprint. But then coming back to an earlier point, I'd like to ask this. The Secretary has been telling us that for the air pollution caused by the incinerator, it would be minimal and therefore is insignificant. We should not be bothered. All right, how about the 18 districts? All right, how about Hong Kong, Kowloon, New Territories? Can we have smaller incinerators at different points so that we would reduce the haul trips, so that everybody would be taking up or shouldering part of the share? But then I have not heard any sincere reply on the part of the administration. Bureau Director, thank you, Mr. Chen. We have repeatedly said that we would come up with a study on future waste management and also the zero landfilling strategy. That would also take on board what you suggested just now. Next, KK Fong, 7th round, 2 minutes. Well, I'd like to follow up on an earlier point just now. According to the Bureau Director, you will be solidifying the waste by cement, and the ratio will be 1:1. Well, for construction waste, all right, they come in different shapes, and therefore, if you try to consolidate it with cement, it would only end up in different shapes again. So in the course of transportation, would it be difficult? And also, in the end, you said that for the use of cement and also for the construction waste, it will come in at a 1:1 ratio. So you would be having more concrete. Initially, it should not have go into the landfills, but then with it going to the landfills as well, you will be increasing the quantity or the volume of waste. And if it ends up in a 1:1 ratio, actually you will be reducing the space at the landfills by half. And thirdly, with regard to such cement consolidation, so is it that all contractors are able to do it, and who will be taking up the cost?
Mr. Au, this is an internationally used approach, and the incinerator can reduce the volume of waste by 90%. That will lower the burden on landfills. But in 2017, there won't be the incinerator yet. So please answer my question. In 2017, there will be no incinerator yet. I'm talking about the treatment of residual excess. No, this is from KK Film. You didn't hear my question at all. Chairman, please give me back my time. I didn't ask about residual excess. Did you hear me? Can you repeat your question? Please give me another 2 minutes. All right, you ask your question now. You are using cement to solidify waste, and you told me that the ratio of cement to construction waste can be 1:1. Construction waste or very irregular shape. How wouldn't there be any transportation problem? And if in the worst case scenario, it will be in the ratio of 1:1, and then you would take up a lot of the expended landfill space. And whose responsibility it is using cement to solidify the waste? The developer and all developers, do they all know how to do that? I think Mr. KK Fong has misunderstood the situation. Mr. Au was saying the residual ashes will be dealt with by solidification using cement. For construction waste, this will not be done. You have to queue up again. Do it in another round, please. You press the button again. Doesn't matter, okay? Next. Mr. Leung Koo Hong, the 7th round. Chairman. Well, assuming that Mr. Wong's belief is true, but sorting is very important. I don't know how you're going to do it in the future. 3 years ago, when I filibustered, I told you that 3 color bags were placed there for aluminum cans, paper, and plastic bags. That was never changed, and that's the case for electrical. We've only got 3 bins, 3 different recycling bins. We don't know where to place glass. Using your blueprint, if waste is not properly sorted and things that shouldn't be incinerated, should not be burned, is incinerated in the future, the consequence can be serious. Not serious? I saw you shaking your head. According to a member of the public, in 2014, the 8th of May in Kaohsiung, an incinerator exploded because waste contained explosive items. And so there was a big explosion and serious pollution of the environment. And 2013, the incinerator in Huizhou also polluted the environment because of poor refuse sorting. So the 2 incinerators were for food waste. So what is your view of this? I remember Kaohsiung and Huizhou saying that it's okay for waste to be incinerated. Will you leave time for him to answer? Don't I have 5 minutes? Well, it's been a long time. It's a long time ago. I gave 5 minutes to members. Please be succinct. The incinerator in Huizhou is for treating chemical waste. It is not relevant to our discussion. And for the incinerator in Kaohsiung, it's for waste. And as I said, we have a refuse transfer center where waste would be sorted out before going to the incinerator. Mr. Albert Ho, the 7th round, I asked about the cost effectiveness of the IWMF. It looks very costly, and there were a lot of people out there listening. And then I received emails saying that figures by the assistant director last time were inappropriate. For instance, in addition to the cost now, there should be money of the day price so that we can compare the price taking into account inflation. I'd like to know the cost per ton. How come we're so expensive? And the assistant director gave us information on incinerators in Denmark. Their incinerators were smaller, and for us, an incinerator like us is big. It should enjoy economy of scale. So why don't you compare it with 3,000 ton capacity incinerator? We are so much more expensive. Mr. Al, when we compare different plants, of course, the year of construction is important because the price will be different at different times. And secondly, for our case, we have to do it on reclamation land, and as a result, there is a difference of $2.6 billion. If we discount reclamation, the costs of these incinerators are more or less the same. For bigger plants, for instance, the one in Holland, if we discount reclamation, the cost per ton is more or less the same. Mr. Gary Fan, the 8th round. Well, previously I mainly focused on reduction as source. Now I will turn to another area. Mr. Leung Kwok-hong quoted the examples in Huizhou and Kaohsiung where there were explosions. I think they are very relevant. Now, when you choose site, we're asking what is your mechanism to ensure that items that should not be burned, such as battery, fluorescent lamps, will not be burned, even though they are from MSW. How can you ensure that they can be screened out and not go into the incinerator? That's the question we're asking. Mr. Ao, first, as the secretary said, there will be 3 transfer stations before waste will be sent to the incinerator. And then when vehicles arrive, our colleagues will screen out unsuitable waste and remove them. And we will step up measures. There will be monitoring at the waste chute. So all will be done by visual inspection. No. Inside the plant, we have monitor. Well, at different conveyance belts, there will be a monitoring mechanism. Point taken, we just want to know how that monitoring mechanism is going to work. Give us the details. If you say it is not by visual inspection, can you tell us how unsuitable waste can be effectively screened out before going to the incinerator? The future operator will have to give us a concrete management plan. We will assess the plan before operation starts. will waste be sought there? When waste is on the conveyance belt, we will monitor to ensure that explosive items, unsuitable waste would be screened out first. Mr. Lang Yu-chung, I asked about the monitoring of air quality around the landfills, and we are told that currently there is no legislation. You're saying that by reducing the number of trips by half, this is already good guarantee. But then, this is not really a concrete monitoring mechanism for the public. There is no safeguard at all for the public. So can we have a piece of legislation for monitoring the air quality of landfills? And can you please set up a monitoring mechanism such as monitoring groups with public representation? Thank you. Mr. Leung. The extension of Zhangguan-O will be even further away than the current landfill from residential developments. And we also have air monitoring stations at appropriate locations on Wanpo Road, because there will be different vehicles using the road. With reduced vehicles to the landfill, there will even be fewer such vehicles. However, we have set up a working group to see how we can respond to the concerns of the public. So we will discuss with the community to see how we can minimize impacts on the community, including in areas in air quality. How do you choose representatives from the community to join the working group? And if there is no legislative backup, then even if there are exceedances, then what's the use? Well, the community liaison group will be formed by representatives from the district council, from the major residential developments and community groups. There will also be standards to monitor the air quality. Mr. Lee Chek-yen, you're going to burn 3,000 tons a day. What incentive is there for you to improve recycling? In particular, the producer responsibility scheme is neither here nor there. I know you are going to do that for electrical products, but what about glass bottles and plastic bottles? You must let us at least see some hope before we can decide whether this is a balanced approach. Because if it is lopsided, there won't be any incentive for people to recycle, say, food waste. Everything will be burned, which is the easiest way out. I am worried that the administration will go for the easy way out, which involves using a lot of public money to build the IWMF, but the social cost will be high. The problem is you do not promote social projects such as encouraging recycling. Of course, you will claim that you are doing that, but the question is whether the efforts are balanced. Secretary, we have a blueprint. The crux of our blueprint is MSW charging scheme. The earliest next year we will introduce a bill to the Council for its discussion. We have 3 producer responsibility schemes. For instance, we've increased the coverage of plastic bag levy and also the scheme covering electrical products and glass bottles. Dr. Fernando Zhang, you are only charging $125 per ton for construction waste, and you're going to apply an ad valorem charge for MSW. Now you have a pilot scheme for MSW charging scheme. You are doing it in 7 residential developments. And for a 3P family, the monthly cost is about $40. In other words, it would be $500 per ton. Now, for construction waste, the unit charge is $125 per ton, and yet for MSW it's $500 per ton. Why are we so lenient to large developers and constructors? How come they can dump waste at our landfills at such a cheap rate? But for MSW, the charge is relatively more expensive. Shouldn't you have the principle that the landfilling charges for construction waste should be higher than that of MSW? Secretary, you're very correct. So on the one hand, we have a user pay principle. On the other hand, we will give regard to the charging level of MSW. However, that charging scheme is still under discussion, and we will take into account this factor in due course. This will be duly considered. I'd like to know when you can give us more information, comprehensive information on this. We are now working on it internally, and we are consulting the industry. If we move quickly, we hope that we can discuss with the relevant panel in the beginning of the year, next year. Mr. K.K. Fong, I asked a question about RSP, but the question was not answered. And in the last round, I thought that solidification with cement was for construction waste. Now, if it's actually for residual waste, I'll ask about RSP. I just read out WHO's view on the harmful effects of RSP. And in 2012, in between May and July, there was a test and readings released at Shepherd Road. And then from the 15th of May to the 16th of August 2014, a similar assessment was done by a green group, and they claim that the report has been given to you, and the RSP measured is 34 times higher than WHO's recommendation, and that is at Wanpo Road. How can you ensure that the level of RSP 2.5 can be lowered to meet international standards? Dr. Chen, regarding the measurement of PM 2.5 at the rooftop of Tai Chek Sha police station, or rather fire station, we use ordinary measuring equipment, whereas the residents used portable equipment. So the readings are different. And according to WHO's recommendation for PM 2.5, harmful effects would only be observed when it is inhaled in the long term. So we use the 24-hour annual average, and for Tai Chek Sha we adopted this standard. And the findings are more or less similar to that done in other parts of Hong Kong. We're in the middle range. Mr. Lang Kwa Hong. For waste recycling, I pointed out that you were not doing a good job in recycling. Now, you don't need to shake your head. I live in a PRH. It's true that every day there is a private sector recycling van to collect recyclings. Now, if you can't even have you can't have sorting of 7 different types of waste in my PRH Why should I trust you that you can do a good job in sorting? And you say that at our incinerator, you will do another round of sorting. If you can't even sort it at source, why are you going to be successful at the terminal end? Well, as I said, we support recycling from an environmental protection point of view. It has no direct relationship with the operation of our incinerator. Of course, if dangerous waste is found, it should be screened out. Yes, it's just like my goddaughter. I asked her to finish her homework, and I told her that if you can't even do the easy bit, which involves only coloring, how can you tell me that you can complete arithmetic assignment? So in the three color recycling bins in PRH, oily cans are dumped in the recycling bin. I've already told you, you should give us a bucket so that we can pour food waste into it. Will you consider this? In a recent FC meeting, I said that for recycling of some materials, we have to consider the whole flow. If we cannot sort food waste at source, the other steps would also be affected.
Mr. Leung, well, today the Secretary has written an article for newspapers, and at the end of the article, he admits that in the past 20 years, Hong Kong has never done anything concerning waste management at the terminals. So now we are almost exhausting all our waste management facilities. Now, I think you have a political burden, Secretary, because the government hasn't done anything in the past 20 years. Now we are asking for so many details because we want exact data. You do not have a crystal ball, but are your assessments correct? Are they supported by facts? Because we don't want to pass projects that are not truly good for Hong Kong. Now you want to extend the 3 landfills and build 1 incinerator. And I have been asking this question. Is it possible for these 3 landfills and 1 incinerator to have different stages when it comes to implementation so that we can monitor your progress in encouraging recycling business, waste reduction, etc.? Can you seek funding in phases? Mr. Leung, you have been asking this question many times. Chairman, Mr. Leung. As for the Went landfill, is divided into stages. Now we are seeking funding for research, and in 2 years' time we will be coming back for further funding for extension. So that would be a gate already. Mr. Albert Ho, 2 minutes. Chairman, for this question, I think I might have asked it, but I want the Secretary to answer me again, because many people are still unhappy. That is about the company Aecon. It has been our consultant. We have never changed the consultant. It seems that is a member of the EPD. So all the consultancy work was done by this company. In particular, the cost is really high. People are querying as to whether there will be conflict of interest. Can you allay people's doubt? Why can't you conduct a tendering exercise? As for the consultant, the selection was an open tendering process. It's totally transparent. As for the design, build, and operate contractor, it cannot take part in the previous work, so there will be no conflict of interest. So for ADCOM, it will also be the consultants this time around. So when you look at tender documents in the future, any one of them should not be related to this consultant, right? So even joint venture is not allowed. The consultant should stop here. That is, if there's tendering, then the tenderer should not be related to this company. This company assists us to look at the tendering documents. It cannot be related to the future DBO contractor. Ms. Emily Lau, 2 minutes. I would like to ask about the Zhang Guan'ou Environmental Protection Avenue. And in October 2003, you stepped up your inspections, and there were overnight actions. And in January this year, a service provider has been commissioned to patrol the road to guard against fly tipping. Why are people doing fly tipping there, and why do you have to hire a company to monitor that? What is the problem there? Now, if household waste is not to be dumped at Zhang Guan'ou, then this problem can be resolved. Yes, because that door will be closed, right? So the vehicles would not go there, and they would just dump the waste anywhere. I said that if household waste is not to be transported to Zhang Guan'ou, then this problem can be resolved. And for our interchange stations, because their operating hours will be longer, so they can cooperate better with the industry. But people will transport waste there, and their operating hours are different, so how can they work? Dr. Chen? Maybe I should clarify. It's not 2003. I think you mean 2013, right? Towards the end of 2013, a CCTV camera was installed at the fly tipping black spot, and the number of cases has significantly dropped. Now, before the installation of the CCTV camera, each month there were 90 tons, and now there's only 1 or 2 tons a month. So the problem is under control. Dr. Fernando Cheung, 2 minutes. About construction waste, each day over 3,300 tons are transported to the landfills, and the recycling rate, according to the government, is 94%. That means 52,000 tons are put at refilling banks, or they are transported elsewhere. So the total volume each year is 20.2 million tons. Now, this is a staggering figure. In the past few months, have these construction waste been exported? I think some of them has been transported to Taishan, and if we are going to pay Taishan, how much have we spent in the past years? I would like to clarify. As for construction waste, it would not be exported. Well, some of them can be used as filling materials for reclamations, and they are recycled usable materials. they have nothing to do with our landfill discussion. Our target is to reduce the dumping of such waste at the landfills and make them more usable. And in the past few years, there was practically no reclamation in Hong Kong. So we would have to cooperate with other places for the use of such construction waste, but it has nothing to do with our present discussion. So now we have some construction waste, and they are not dumped at the landfills, but they are put in the filler banks, and some of them are used for reclamation. As for these materials, if they cannot be used locally, then they are exported to other places. I don't think that's the answer. Secretary, can you give him the answer again? Well, what is related to the 3 landfills and the incinerator are construction materials that have not been recycled. Over 90% of them have now been recycled, and they can be used as fillers in reclamation sites, or they can be used in other places. Gary Fan, I would like to ask about the emission standards of the incinerator. The Secretary said that the emission standard will be higher than the EU standard, but the government would not legislate for such a standard. I would like to ask about the incinerator. Now, is there an assumption that the emission standard will reach the standard that you set when the incinerator is used optimally? If there are some problems with the incinerator, then you will not reach the level. As for the incinerator, like other incinerators in the world, it will be operating 24 hours a day. And there are some design factors which will make it reach the EU standard. So under certain circumstances, it will not reach the EU standard. If you do not operate it 24 hours a day, then the emission standard will be lower than that of the EU. Well, for incinerators, once it starts working, it will not stop, and that would be better for energy efficiency. So that's overseas experience, right? So it will operate for 10 years, 15 years, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Yes. How about maintenance? Well, there is a standby facility. So if one of the incinerator is to be maintained, and the other, the standby facility will work. So we will ensure that it will reach the highest standards on a long-term basis. Just now you talk about LSP and PM 2.5. And the government said that they did a test at Dai Chek Sa, and now the residents are doing the test on environment on Whampoa Avenue. And so your test was done at a remote place, and you said that they are using a different tool. The residents are using a different tool. So you think that the tool or equipment they used is not reliable? Mr. Feng, you have asked this question a number of times. It has nothing to do with our present discussion. Now, there is RSP there because they are transporting construction waste on Whampoa Avenue. So for PM 2.5, in EU, you cannot exceed the level for even one single day. In the US, you can exceed the level for 7 days. So if the residents are not using the proper equipment, why don't you use your proper equipment at their places? Well, first of all, I have to explain, actually I explained many times, PM 2.5 when it's compared with PM10, it's very different. Now, for construction waste or construction site dust, the dust size is big. PM 2.5 comes from burning or vehicle emission. As for residence equipments, because they check every second, and they will check for a dozen minutes, and then it will come up with an average figure. So it cannot be compared with our equipment. So do you think the equipment is not reliable? I'm not saying that, because these are two different equipments. And if you look at WHO's standards, you would have to measure for 24 hours and then calculate the average. Ms. Sitho, 2 minutes. Just now, Mr. Gary Fang asked about the 24-hour operation, and Mr. Au said that it would stop, because when we visited the Scandinavian countries, we knew that they would stop, that there would be 2 facilities, and one would stop if the other is to be maintained. And one will operate if the other is to be maintained. Now, when you first start the fire, you have to use resources. If you do not sort dry and wet waste, then you have to use more fuel to start the burning. And if you do not do the sorting, the energy to be generated would be undermined. Well, we went to the Scandinavian countries, we saw chimneys emitting smoke all the time, and it's grayish in color. So you really have to explain more clearly to the residents. And Chairman, back to the question. So before the waste is burned, why don't you sort it? Then you can promote the recycling industry, and it can enhance energy efficiency. Now, we also have a food waste blueprint, encouraging people to sort their food waste. Well, even when we go to Denmark and Holland, they are not doing this 100%. Some of the food waste is also incinerated. We are all at a starting point. We will be doing more for food waste, but we have more difficulties, because they are doing composting, but we are not. In Denmark and in Hong Kong, we all adhere to international standards, and they will not affect people's health. Mr. James Toll, 3 minutes. I don't know whether you have asked your assistants to check it. For your emission, you use EU standard, but for health risk, that is the carcinogenic factors, you use the US standard. Maybe I can explain again. We are talking about 2 different standards and 2 different positions. For the chimney emission, all the modern incinerators would have to reach the EU standard, because that's the most stringent one. That's the first gate. Because EU adopts the most stringent standards when it comes to chimney emission. But for the receptors, in Hong Kong, we want to do better, so that's why we have conducted a health impact assessment. In some European countries, they do not do this, but we are taking a step forward. And professionally, the U.S. approach is more popular, and it would look at carcinogens and the impact on people's health. This will be used as the parameters. So from the chimney to the receptors is a difference. Are you saying that the EU standard is lower than the US standard, or EU has no standard and only US has standard? We are not talking about the chimney. We are talking about the receptor. As for the receptor, WHO and EU do not have this kind of requirement. So EU does not have this requirement. That's why you adopt the US standard. Yes. Mr. Au, can you answer this question more clearly? The chairman asked whether the US or the EU has no requirements in this area. That is the impact on the receptor. Can you be more prudent? Can you check it once again to play safe? You told the chairman no, because you are a public officer. Well, you have asked this question many times, so I just want to clarify the question to you. Just now, the government says that the EU emission standard is the most stringent. You have to be more careful. Maybe they have administrative measures. For the EU standard, do they have an area designated? Well, in Europe, for modern incinerators, within a few hundred meters there are residents. So this is the EU standard. Mr. Lee Cheuk-yan, 2 minutes. Chairman, well, for incinerators, do you regulate this regard? That is, what waste would be sent to incinerators?
So would that be an incinerator law regulating what can be sent to the landfills? And if you send something wrong to the incinerators, for example, if medical waste is sent to the incinerator, then would that be a piece of legislation to regulate it? And can residents take part in the regulating or monitoring process? And if they send something which is obnoxious or hazardous to the incinerator, and according to our experience, for chemicals that might explode, if they are sent to the incinerator, you said that you would be inspecting that by naked eye, so that you would make sure that chemicals would not go into the incinerators. But then what if inappropriate substances have been sent to the incinerator? Then will there be criminal sanctions, so that you can be sure that no chemicals or inappropriate substances will be sent to the incinerator? Mr. Au? Well, for chemical waste, it's regulated under the Chemical Waste Disposal Ordinance, and all such substances can only go to the Chemical Waste Treatment Center. So we will be responsible for regulating that. Well, at the RTS and also the future incineration facility, we will also be strictly monitoring that in order to ensure that such substances will not go into the incinerator. And also for the modern day design of incinerator is very sturdy, and therefore it would not be affected. What about overseas experience? As far as I'm aware, there is also no such legislation elsewhere. So they would just be regulating how chemical waste will be dealt with. And in Hong Kong, we also have a separate law on that. Ms. Sito, well, in foreign countries, the awareness is high, and they also have a waste recovery and recycling system. So the waste will be collected and reused, and they would not just be relying on the incinerator to dispose waste. So what's the energy that will be needed to ignite the fire of the incinerator? So how much energy will have to be used? How much fuel will have to be used? And also for food waste, if we have wet waste for incineration, then in terms of the energy efficiency, would that be affected? All right, if you do not have the figures with you, then can you provide that afterwards? Well, in Scandinavia, we can see that their incinerators are industrial type, and according to they would supply heat. So according to what they told us, actually you can also turn it into cooling plant. And Mr. Au said that in the tendering exercise, the tenderers would give you their specification as to what they're going to do. But then with regard to the administration and the public's requirements, would you be putting that in the document so that only contractors that can meet the requirements can bid? All right, I'll answer the third question first. We do have a performance requirement. So we do have a performance specification. So all the contractors or bidders will have to meet the standards. So we will take on board your comments and the public's views. And also for igniting the incinerator in overseas countries, the waste would also generate heat. So as soon as you burn it, it will start to generate heat, and therefore igniting the incinerator would not be too difficult. And for overseas experience, and if you look at the quantity value, we are talking about 10 heat joule, or the heat value is about 10 joules. Fernando Jiang, 9th round, 2 minutes. All right, I asked about construction waste. Some of it can be recovered. So we are referring to the inert materials. All right, they can be sent to the field banks, and then for the non-inert materials, they will have to go to the landfills. So 94% will be inert materials, and then 6% will go to. All right, 94% can go to the field banks, and most of them will have to pass through Changguanou. So whether it's inert or otherwise, it will have to pass through Changguanou, passing through residential developments. But then after going to the field banks, it will be used for reclamation. And as the Bureau Director said in the past, we have suspended reclamation projects. That's why we have not been able to use it. And there was some regional cooperation. That's why for construction waste that should have been used for reclamation, you have sent it out to other countries. So in terms of the transportation costs and in exporting such inert materials, when you have to pay other cities for accepting that, how much have you spent on that? Well, Bureau Director, I understand what Dr. Zheng is referring to, but then I do not see how this is related to the proposal. So I'd like to compare the cost effectiveness. All right, if you were to export such inert materials, so what's the cost compared to landfilling it? And also I'd like to know a bit more about this. You're talking about a large scale. Well, they've been saying that they have never they have never considered the export issue. So you're asking about the cost effectiveness between the two. But then they also admitted that there was some regional cooperation. They never exported it anyway. Yes, they did. They admitted that too. But then what has that got to do with the 3 landfills and 1 incinerator proposal? Well, whether they exported and also the cost effectiveness, there is no difference from the current landfilling approach, and it's not related. Next, Albert Ho, 9th round, 2 minutes. Well, in 2010, the EPD published this AQO menu, Air Quality Objectives menu. When I read it, when they published it, they never took into account the impact of building this new incinerator. And according to the figures that we got, if you're going to incinerate some 3,000 tons of waste every day, can you give us an idea as to the exhaust gas, including carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxide, and also heavy metal and dioxin? So overall speaking, what's the impact on air quality? And also after the incineration, the toxic ash, toxic residual ash, you will have to take it to the landfill. So what kind of impact will it have on the environment of the landfill? Mr. O, Chairman, on the impact on air quality, we have conducted a very detailed scientific study and assessment, and we have done so by simulation. All right, in Changchao, even together with other sources, well, in terms of sulfur dioxide, well, the concentration, the cumulative concentration is only 26 UG, and is far below the standards. And also, is only taking up some 0.05 UG per cubic meter. or milligram per cubic meter. And also for the flying ash, well, for the residual ash, they would be solidified before they would be disposed of, and therefore that would not give rise to adverse impact. So they will also have to meet the residual incineration residue before it can go to the landfills. Meeting is